Greetings, viewers from Kenya and around the world. I'm your host, Ndulu Gitao. Thank you for tuning in to the Global Insights. On today's headlines, Kenya's digital trap. Are our children safe online? The silent epidemic inside Kenya's rising drug crisis. Democracy for sale. The high price of politics in Kenya. Justice denied. Kenya's struggle with police brutality and human rights. Live from the Global Insights TV newsroom, we welcome our viewers in Kenya and around the world. We're with you for the next 25 minutes. Thanks for joining us. This is the Global Insights. You can join the conversation on social media at the Global Insights TV using the hashtag the Global Insights News. The rapid expansion of internet access and smartphone use in Kenya has created a double-edged sword for children and youth. While digital platforms offer education, social connection, and entertainment, they have also become a hunting ground for cyber predators, scammers, and exploitative content. TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. Kenyan children and youth are increasingly exposed to cyber risks such as online predators, cyberbullying, and digital blackmail, with 65% of minors aged 10 to 17 encountering online threats. Social media platforms like TikTok and WhatsApp, online gaming, and encrypted chats have become hotspots for exploitation. Yet, law enforcement and digital safety policies remain weak. The rapid adoption of smartphones and internet access, especially in urban and peri-urban areas, has outpaced efforts to create safe digital environments. Many young users, often unsupervised, are easily targeted by malicious actors who exploit the naivety, emotional vulnerabilities, or lack of awareness about online dangers. Popular trends like viral challenges, anonymous apps, and private gaming servers further expose minors to manipulation, harassment, and even recruitment into illicit activities. Despite these growing threats, Kenya's legal frameworks have limited effectiveness when it comes to protecting minors. Moreover, most schools and parents remain under-equipped to teach digital literacy or instill safe online behaviors among children. Efforts by civil society organizations and private tech firms to promote online safety awareness have begun to bridge the gap, but the scale of the problem demands broader collaboration. Urgent investment is needed in digital safety education, child protection hotlines, online reporting mechanisms, and updated cybersecurity laws that specifically address the vulnerabilities of young users. Without stronger safeguards, Kenya risks a generation increasingly exposed to trauma, exploitation, and long-term psychological harm from unregulated online spaces. In response to these alarming figures, experts and child protection advocates are calling the urgent action, including fast-tracking reforms to the Children's Act to incorporate digital protection clauses, establishing national school-based programs to educate children on the online safety, and enhancing parental involvement through awareness initiatives. Additionally, they urge the government to work closely with social media companies to create faster Kenya-specific content reporting and moderation mechanisms aimed at harmful material targeting minors. To help us delve deeper into the urgent issue of protecting children and youth in the digital age, we are joined by Lawrence Getendra, project lead at Youth Alive Kenya and an expert in spearheading initiatives aimed at promoting child and youth safety in the digital space. With hands-on experience in designing online safety campaigns, developing policy recommendations, and working directly with affected communities, Youth Alive Kenya offers valuable insights into the challenges and solutions surrounding the protection of minors in today's rapidly evolving online environment. Lawrence brings a wealth of knowledge on online safety, digital literacy, and child protection in the modern tech landscape. What are the most common cyber threats faced by Kenyan children and youth online?
In terms of cyber threats that face a lot of young people, there are quite a number. I would say all the threats literally that you would categorize as falling within the online ambit young people face. The biggest one I would say is cyberbullying. We see a lot of people abusing these platforms just because of the aspect of anonymity sometimes. Bully young people for different reasons, and even sometimes without any justifiable reason. Body shaming, that's also a form of cyberbullying. Sexual harassment is also big. Online doxing, where people share information, images, things about you that ordinarily you wouldn't want to be shared online. But I would say in terms of one of the biggest challenges has been cyberbullying and doxing, which has really affected a lot of young people.
Why has cyberbullying and online exploitation increased in recent years?
Yeah, the reason it has increased, first of all, is because of the penetration of the internet in Kenya. I think we've been growing steadily in terms of penetration, so a lot of young people, generally even the public, has access to the internet. Also, affordability to access the internet. Data bundles, Wi-Fi, what do we call it, fiber, is very, very, very accessible to many people. So, and because of that accessibility, young people can be able to come in, and because of that, now some of them take advantage and bully other people, and so on and so forth. Also, another thing is the aspect of anonymity, which I would say is the biggest challenge online. The fact that you can't see who is behind the account has emboldened people, good people and bad people at the same time. So they take advantage of this anonymity, to bully people, to take advantage of the platform, and cause a situation which is uncomfortable for everybody involved. Yeah.
And are law enforcement agencies equipped to handle rising cases of cybercrime against minors?
I would say it's a big challenge. Law enforcement in Kenya is not equipped adequately at all to deal with cyber issues. First of all, being the issue of the capacity. Many of them are still not up to date with how they can properly interact with these platforms, how they can actually get in touch with them. There is also the issue of capacity. Has the government ensured that law enforcement people have the equipment to make sure that they are able to track the people that are taking advantage of these platforms, to arrest and also to prosecute, because that's also a challenge that is there. So the laws that we have in Kenya, as much as some of them address the misuse of online platforms and cyberbullying, they're not really adequate to ensure that the victims actually get justice. Then also in terms of capacity, we feel like our police are really stretched. There is so much going on in this country, and so when it comes to issues of cyber harassment, cyberbullying, most of them find it difficult to actually follow up with the same, because the question for them is, okay, so this has happened to you, when do you want me to start? They don't even know where they can be able to begin this conversation, because even some of them are not even that tech savvy. Yeah. So I would say it's really quite a challenge, and we really urge the government and everybody involved. As much as we are still having a conversation, it's equally important as we have the same. It's good to make sure that we have adequate investment, financial investment, capacity investment, to ensure our police are in a capacity to address these issues.
And should Kenya introduce tougher regulations on tech firms to improve online child safety?
Yeah, in terms of regulating tech firms, I would say it's kind of a difficult ask because tech firms cut across the globe. It's not a Kenyan issue alone, it's a global issue. So even if we have regulations in Kenya, how will we make sure that we also protect the children, for example, in Uganda, in South Africa, in Korea, or any other country for that matter? So I would say it needs a global approach where we come up with global standards to ensure that the safety of children and young people is protected online.
And how can communities and advocacy groups play a role in child online protection?
In terms of the role of communities in ensuring that there is child safety, I think we don't do enough of educating and informing our children and young people on how to be safe online. So how is it that we can make sure as we use these online platforms, they are appropriate? Whatever we are posting is appropriate. What is it that the young people need to do? What information is it that they can be able to share and not to share? So it's very important, first of all, to educate our young people and to make sure that they are not taken advantage. Tell them of the platforms and also make sure that they're using the platforms in the right way. I would say that would be the first thing that we can do as the community. And also, we need to have a conversation. We know cyberbullying is going on. We know there's a lot of online harassment. So if I am a victim, where do I go? Where do I start? So these are the conversations we need to start at the community level. For us to know when this happens to you, these are the avenues that I can be able to go and seek justice and seek help, because we've also seen a lot of incidences where young people fall into depression because of what is happening online. Young people are killing themselves, committing suicide because of what is happening to them online. So we need to have also a conversation with them and tell them, you know what, even if this happens, these are some of the spaces that we can use to seek help. Yeah.
And lastly, what global best practices can Kenya adopt to improve child and youth safety online?
In terms of the global best practices, we need to have more robust laws that address cyberbullying, cyber attacks, any form of cybercrime that is going on, because as it is right now, Kenya, we are not up to par with other countries in terms of ensuring that as we have these online conversations, our young people are protected. So I would really urge our country, Kenya, to put in place measures to ensure that we have laws that protect our young people and make sure that the perpetrators who are involved are actually arrested and justice is served for the victims.
We appreciate your feedback on our social media platforms. Amina Khan from Mombasa says that such an important conversation. So many parents still don't realize how dangerous online spaces can be. Thank you for highlighting this. Liam Rodriguez from Nairobi also says, appreciate Lawrence for breaking this down. We need stronger laws and smarter parenting to keep our kids safe online. Mwikali, also joining us from Nairobi, says, finally, someone is talking about this with urgency. Minors facing online threats, that's a crisis we can't ignore. Another one is Sophie, joining us from Bondo, Kisumu. Great insights from the correspondent. We need more cross-border efforts to protect children globally from digital exploitation. And lastly, Tabo from Nyamira says this segment hit home. Online gaming and DMs are real danger zones for kids. Time for action, not just awareness. Experts stress the urgent need for parental awareness, digital literacy in schools, stricter laws, and tech industry accountability to protect minors. While Kenya's Data Protection Act exists, big tech companies prioritize profits over safety, leaving children and youth vulnerable. This uncovers hidden trafficking networks, harmful content algorithms, and ways to reclaim online safety for Kenyan youth. In other stories, Kenya is facing a silent but deadly drug crisis. with rising cases of substance abuse among youth and even school-going children. The availability of cheap heroin, cocaine, and synthetic drugs has worsened the situation, fueled by organized crime networks and weak enforcement drug laws. Experts warn that unless urgent action is taken, Kenya risks a full-blown public health disaster. Who is benefiting from the crisis and what can be done to stop it? TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. What was once a fringe problem has now evolved into national emergency, fueled by sophisticated and often politically shielded drug trafficking network that stretches across borders. Experts say the Kenyan coast has become a major transshipment route for international drug cartels smuggling narcotics from Asia and the Middle East into Europe and Africa. The Indian Ocean coastline, with its porous borders and under-patrolled sea routes, offers an ideal entry point for smugglers. Multiple investigations, including those by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, point to the involvement of well-connected individuals, including rogue port officials, corrupt law enforcement agents, and political operatives who protect in exchange for bribes or a cut for the profits. These shadow networks ensure that drugs can move through Kenya with relative ease, finding their way into poor urban neighborhoods where addiction takes root fastest. As addiction drives many young people into crime and prostitution, are rehabilitation centers adequately funded to support recovery, or is the system failing them?
The system is failing them to meet the needs of young people struggling with addiction, while you find that there is limited accessibility, which may lead to unavailability of drugs due to medication in the patient. Whereas you may also find the lack of integrated care, which may cause trauma and also recovery issues for the patient.
And what role do schools, parents, and communities play in preventing youth from falling into substance abuse?
For the parents, the role they play is to early education and communication to the young kids, where you are required to demonstrate proper use of medication to your kids, and also you're supposed to monitor whereabouts of your kids, and also for the different.
Finally, what policy changes and interventions are needed to curb Kenya's silent but devastating drug epidemic?
This is increasing of rehabilitation centers for the patients. You may find that most of areas the rehabilitation centers are adequately.
Who controls the illegal drug trade, and how do these substances continue to flood Kenyan streets despite anti-drug policies? Joining this conversation, we have Anita Karembo, a clinical psychologist working at Mathare Hospital. Thank you for joining this important conversation. Tell us, with heroin, cocaine, and synthetic drugs becoming more accessible, are law enforcement agencies failing, or is it corruption enabling traffickers?
That's a very good question. The first thing we should ask ourselves is, why is the accessibility becoming easier and easier every single day? We can't just point fingers at the law enforcement. We have to dig deeper and get to understand why are these substances now easier to get. It reflects and shows us there's a deeper issue and a deeper concern that needs to be addressed. As a psychologist, I believe we can't be cleaning our cup from outside. We need to first reflect from within, get to understand why people need to use these substances. Is it because of the economic hardships and distress, psychological issues, and all these things? As much as the law enforcement is failing, there's a reason that people are finding it easier to use and access these drugs. If we're able to work on that, we will even curb the need of even wanting to use these substances and come up with better policies that can help our law enforcement help us achieve this goal. It's not only their problem, it's a problem of the whole society, and if we work together, we'll actually curb this whole issue.
Vijana tuache miadarati, nasema tuache miadarati. Vijana tuache miadarati, nasema tuache miadarati. Vijana tuache miadarati.
Welcome back to the Global Insights News, your trusted source for in-depth analysis, cutting-edge news, and stories shaping our world. I'm your host, Ndulu Gitao. Join the conversation on our social media handles on Facebook and Twitter at the Global Insights TV and use the hashtag the Global Insights News. In other news, Kenya's democracy is under increasing scrutiny as allegations of election fraud, voter suppression, and political interference raise concerns about the integrity of its electoral system. While the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has made reforms in the years since, critics argue they have not gone far enough. TGI's TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. A concerning trend in the growing disillusionment among Kenya's youth, who made up the majority of the population but are increasingly choosing to stay away from the polls. The 2022 elections saw a record low youth voter turnout, with many citing a lack of trust in candidates and the credibility of the process. This democratic fatigue presents a serious risk to future electoral legitimacy and civic engagement. And with youth voter turnout declining, why do young Kenyans feel disengaged from the political process, and what can be done to restore their faith in democracy?
Number one, promises have just become promises. They stick to that. You tell a young person, I'm gonna do this, then you don't do it. Come another election, you also promise. So it has been a sequence of promises. Young people see this. I call it unfulfilled promises. So young people more and more, like the ones who interact with them, some of them say, we don't feel like taking an idea. I'll take it by the time I feel I should towards the elections. Why? Because they don't see the need. What they asked from the politicians, it's not yet done. So they feel it's just a normal process. We just have to, it's a formal process that we have to undergo. Then call it a day. It's never for us. It's always for the leaders. So that is why, for me, young people are more distant in terms of, and that's why they ask for these small tokens whenever politicians come, because they feel that is the only thing they can benefit from. Any other thing, in terms of being involved in decision making, young people are nowhere. Take for instance the IEBC, the shortlisted candidates. It took an initiative from organizations, like-minded Kenyans, to force their way into that list. So there's that in goodwill to involve young people. Yes.
Nerima Nzula, Executive Director at Siasa Place, joins this conversation. Thank you for joining this important conversation. While democratic institutions exist, are they effectively serving the people, or do they prioritize political elites?
I think that democratic institutions, in the foundations of them, was about the people. But more and more we are seeing that it prioritizes the elite, and we see how capitalism is now ingrained within our democracy, especially when we see that now richer families or families that have been in politics for a longer period of time have better chances in leadership compared to anyone being able to rise to the top. So we are seeing how it does have an effect.
As the country prepares for future elections, is there a clear roadmap for electoral reforms, or will history repeat itself with disputed results and political instability?
I believe we're seeing history repeat itself, especially when we look at the short list of the candidates for the commission. There are very similar names. There are people who actually interviewed in the last election and their names are back there. There are people who have state appointments. There are people who are public officials and their names are there. We're not seeing fresh faces. We're not seeing the goodwill from the commission to be able to have people in place who are not politically aligned, and that's where the problem begins. these are people who it already seems like it's predetermined, and that's a concern because it reduces the trust in the institution, and that's also going to increase apathy, especially if young people feel that they don't trust the results. So I think we're going to watch a repeat happen.
For our fourth story, we delve into human rights. Kenya is grappling with a surge in extrajudicial killings and police brutality, with over 100 deaths linked to security forces in the past year alone. Victims, mostly young men from poor communities, are often branded as criminals and executed without due process. Families seeking justice face systemic barriers, including intimidation, tampered evidence, and lack of police accountability. As activists and journalists risk their lives exposing state violence, concerns grow that Kenya is normalizing impunity. With mounting pressure from human rights groups and citizens, will the justice system finally deliver accountability? Or will police brutality remain unchecked? TGI TV's Ndulu has the latest from Nairobi. Young men in low-income areas are disproportionately targeted, and families seeking justice face intimidation, evidence tampering, and delayed investigations. While the poor exist to hold officers accountable, few convictions occur, fueling impunity as protests mount and international pressure builds. Will Kenya finally reform its police force, or will justice continue to be denied? As activists and journalists face harassment for exposing police abuses, is Kenya sliding toward a culture of impunity where human rights violations are normalized?
Bearing in mind and just reflecting the recent scenarios that has happened, especially during the Gen Z demonstration, which is most recent, we've seen how police brutality have been escalated, and this clearly shows us that where we are heading as a country, and a lot of impunity has been shown. And even just looking at how the judicial system handle its cases, especially around issues around gender-based violence. We've seen the time that the system has taken before making judgment, and also we've seen the cases of the Kware Kwari and the women being killed, and like literally how the whole thing has been always aired out. And this clearly shows that we are, as a country, we are heading, and a lot needs to be done as far as making sure that we are not putting the life of the citizen at risk, because police have shown us the brutal kind, how brutal they can be. And for me, I always see a police as someone who is there to protect us, and not someone who is there to harm us. So yes, the country is shifting to a lot of impunity, and there is a lot that needs to be handled, especially the police system and even their leadership as a whole. Because I believe these people, they get commands, and there is someone that needs to be held accountable in terms of making sure that even them, their books are being taken into account in terms of how they operate, because it's their role to linda mwananchi, not to harm mwananchi.
And what concrete reforms are needed to restore public trust in law enforcement and ensure justice for victims of state violence?
I think the public needs to be given a chance to be listened to in terms of them being able to communicate how they want things to be done, and in terms of the pending cases that involves the public, the young people, being given a direction how all these things are happening. And to some extent, I also feel there is need for reforms, a lot of reforms in the public sector, a lot of reforms in the judicial system, a lot of reforms even in the police sectors, to ensure that we're not just putting people into places because of the friendship or the relationship that we build, but again we are putting them in place because they got the values that are bind to a certain community, values that are bind to the Constitution of Kenya. So I'll say there is need to have a lot of reforms in that area. I don't know if I've responded clearly.
Lawrence Gatendra, project lead at Youth Alive Kenya, joins this conversation. Thank you for joining this important conversation. Many victims come from low-income communities, prompting the question, is police brutality a tool of class oppression, targeting the poor?
Police brutality is a challenge here in Kenya. In many situations where young people have been able to come out wanting to speak for their rights or wanting to speak to their issues, the response from the police has, in most cases, been on the negative. And we see young people coming from disadvantaged backgrounds being more affected. And the reason that is happening is access to rights, access to justice. We see when victims come from a disadvantaged background, most of the time there isn't much noise about it. There isn't many people who want to speak up or even aware that that has actually happened. So police are aware of this and they take advantage of that. So they know when they brutalize, when they take advantage of these young people, probably considering that they are coming from a disadvantaged background, nothing will happen. But when they know, that you are a young person of means or come from a family of means, then they are less likely to treat you, in a brutal manner and handle you actually as it should be according to the laws of Kenya.
Thank you for tuning into the Global Insights News. Until next time, I've been your host, Lulu Kitao.
Kote nchini mbele tuendelee, mbele Kenya twende mbele,
Kenya
tuendelee.
Twende Mbele. NCBA. Go for it.